Welcome to Office Hours, where we answer your tech and media production questions every single day. Jason Bache is our reader today. Jason, what's our first question?
Coming in from the QR code, Mariela Shusha Miera in Wabalo writes in, somebody at Tech told me they have PSL for my DSL. What does this mean, and what do I do with this? What's wrong?
That was cute. PSL for my DSL. We are an acronym-based industry, aren't we? Alex Lindsay's going to help us out. Alex?
We think that might be the physical service layer. So that might be what they're saying. That they've identified the cabling that's necessary for it, that's there. It may mean that it needs to be completed as far as the connection. I don't know what's wrong, but if they say that they have it, it just means they've identified it most likely. So if you can give us more information, that'd be great. But from your question, we would think that the PSL is your physical service layer.
It's amazing how many acronyms and initialisms are repeated. So you go, oh, it could be one of 3 or 4 things, but hopefully this helps you out. Let's go to our next question.
Another QR code question. Gene J. Anthony in Skokie, Illinois writes in, there are breakout ends for SMPTE tactical leads that provide ST and can do power too. In the same way, there are breakouts for tactical fiber ends, and SMPTE tactical cables can come with more than 2 channels. So why not use the cables made for production use?
Alex does a lot with these fiber cables. Alex?
A little confused by the question. I'm not sure you're saying are there or there are breakout ends. I mean, any of the issues that we've had with SMPTE with ST, we're running that in parallel, running the power in parallel with the cable. And you can definitely have that made. We've definitely done those where we have fiber cables that have power that's included in them. You have to be careful about power being included in them because the power drops off over a long distance. So if you go the same distance the fiber can go, a lot of times the power isn't nearly as good by the time it gets to the other side because it's oftentimes copper. So that becomes a little bit more problematic. SMPTE is really designed to take that power and a lot of other things, the SMPTE fiber, to use it there. We do it that way when we have fiber backs. But if you don't have a fiber back for your camera, then you're going to end up using fiber and fiber converters and everything else. So it's not quite as simple as, so if I get a Blackmagic camera, for instance, or a Sony or whatever, and I put a fiber back on the back of it, then that's ready for SMPTE fiber. And then I have a CCU that's going to sit in a rack, and I'm going to connect it to that. And then I basically interface with the CCU as if it was the camera. And that long cable, as you said, will take out power and comms, some audio, a lot of other things that'll take it to that fiber back. But you need the fiber back to reconvert that SMPTE. A lot of our cameras don't have that. They don't have a fiber back for it, so we end up using fiber converters and everything else to go back and forth between them. And there's a variety of ways that we'll pass that through. So that's probably I'm not totally clear from your question, but that is when we use SMPTE. When we can use SMPTE because it's really easy. When you can't use SMPTE, then you have lots of converters that are used to convert your electrical into light.
And Mickey noted in the chat, SMPTE fiber is meant to be used for camera links. The number of strands is limited. Why use SMPTE fiber? And it's limited strands when the need is for many strands and no need for power. So these are some of the things to take into consideration.
To Mickey's point, a lot of times, a SMPTE is connecting one camera. If I take fiber and connect, I might have a TAC-12 that has 12 lines of fiber, and on any one of those pieces of fiber, I could technically connect up to 8 HD cameras to it using different wavelengths. And that's just one piece of the glass and so then I break it out and get it all there. It's also a lot lighter and a lot less expensive to run. The other thing is there's many other things I may want to do. SMPTE fiber is going to connect that one camera, but I might want to bring Ethernet. I might want to run, connect a variety of other devices to it. So Mickey's 100% right, as usual. That's in addition to not having compatibility, that there's a lot of ways to pass that through. A lot of times we run fiber like a TAC-12 2 different directions in a building, so that if someone runs over it, sometimes 4, if it's in the Las Vegas Convention Center underneath someone's booth, usually 3 or 4 different ways of getting there because of forklifts. Forklifts are the problem.
Forklifts are not cable's friends, and specifically fiber cables. When you've got an optical link, one break and you're in trouble. Next question.
Coming in from the QR code, Chuck Hodges in Tuolumne, California writes in, other than price, what's the difference between using an Echo Show or the old Meta Portal or the Dten, all the HD bumps, versus an iPad for Zoom?
Alex Lindsay, dive in.
Well, I think that Zoom is either. I think that they've worked it out so that you can get 1080p from the meeting can be 1080p. I mean, all of these will. I don't know if the iPad will bump, but I don't think it matters anymore. So we used to do this thing where we would connect the Portal or the D10 or the Echo or whatever, because it would automatically bump it to 720. You can just call, you can just email or create a ticket and support, and they'll move you to 720. If you don't know that 720 exists, they're not going to give it to you for free. But if you ask for it, they'll just give it to you. To get to 1080, you're going to need to have a business reason for it. You have to pay for it. You have to, I think you pay for the sessions license or whatever, and you'll get 1080p. So it's gotten much easier to do that. So if you're talking about the bumps, that's the advantage there. In the past, the problem we had with iPads and other iOS devices or other more portable devices is that they actually limited the meeting to 720. But I think that's fixed, but I'm not 100% sure. The last thing I'll say is what the difference is. The camera on a new iPad is dramatically better than those. Not on the older iPads, but if you get an iPad made in the last year, the quality of the camera, Apple has many hundreds and hundreds of engineers working just on the cameras, and so because that's what people buy their iPad. The big reason to upgrade a phone, any phone, is the camera. Like that's all people care about.
Courtney Gooden?
I don't know about the D10, but one difference, if you're not talking about what it does to your Zoom meeting and just the differences between the items themselves, is I think the original Echo Show would follow you around, has face tracking, and would keep you in frame as you were moving around. So it'd be good for teachers that may be walking back and forth to the blackboard or moving back and forth in front of a class because it has tracking. And I don't know if the iPad could be.
It does that too.
It does that. Oh, using a 4K image area and just taking a portion of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Next question.
Jeff Veely in Henderson, Texas writes in, which hub would you recommend for adding 3 to 4 USB-C inputs to the Mac Studio?
We're going to start with going out to Tromsø, Norway for Ronnie Hofsøy. Ronnie?
Yeah, I had this on my table for a long time and finally got to choose. After discussing a lot with the other panelists and people that know much more about this thing that I do, I went with OWC. And since I also have a Mac Mini M4, there is also a Thunderbolt 5 version of this that has recently been made available. But one of those that probably could be the one that you are looking for is the 14-port that is including 5 USB in Type A, and it also have a Type C, and just do a conversion. Or you can choose one of the others, which has the OWC 11-port Thunderbolt, has 3 USB A's and USB 2.0. This is an older one. And they also have a Go dock, which has USB-C and A. And the last one, if you just go into the shop at OWC, you can do your primary connection here. And if you select the Thunderbolt 5, you will see the absolute newest one, which adds 3 Thunderbolt 5s and 1 USB 3.2. And that is also on Thunderbolt 5, so it will be possible to use with the newer products that is coming out. So just be aware if you're going to use this on a Mac Mini or a newer studio. It has probably to be M4 Studio using the Pro, which probably will be launched during the year. So that way you are forward compatible, and it has a lot of power as well, so you can use it on laptops to charge the laptop as well. Just make sure that you have the Pro chip if you're going to use the Thunderbolt 5. I would probably look at the other ones that are Thunderbolt 3 or 2 to just have a lot of extra USB-Cs.
Alex Lindsay.
What Ronnie said.
There you go. He covered it pretty thoroughly.
Yeah. OWC is the way to go. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we've had very good luck, all of us, with using their products. Next question.
Coming in from the QR code, Gene J. Anthony in Skokie, Illinois asks, how do I connect my old computer tower with a VGA cable to my new computer with USB ports? I tried a VGA to USB adapter and it doesn't work.
We're going to call on Courtney Gooden to help you out here. Courtney?
Well, there are a couple of ways. You could remote into it using the Windows Remote, or you could take, if you need to take the actual video output of that old computer and bring it in as a webcam into your new computer, you could, if the one that you got doesn't work, you could go the two adapter way and take one of these VGA to HDMI converters, and then you end up in HDMI, then take the short HDMI cable over to a HDMI to USB converter for about $10, and that should show up as a webcam in your Windows laptop or your MacBook, and give you, UVC signal coming into your other computer, which you could then use in Zoom or anything that takes an external camera input via USB.
Ronnie Hofsway.
I think you actually understood what he meant. I was actually thinking of what is the meaning, or what is he trying to do? And if the thing is to just get the picture or the image from the old machine into a new machine to repurpose that for something like a stream or anything, it's the Courtney way. If there are some other stuff going on here that I don't understand, please be more detailed in the question or resubmit it, because I'm not entirely sure I understand what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah, there's a little bit of variation here. James Haldane in the chat noted you may need to install the DisplayLink drivers. So it may be a combination of getting the right cables, but sometimes there's a little tweaking of drivers and things like that need to be done as well. Alex Lindsay?
Yeah, I don't quite understand what's going on there. If you're trying to capture something there, or, for monitors, I will say that what we've had to do is always convert the USB to HDMI and then the HDMI to VGA, and then it works. But I don't. Okay. But you're looking like you're trying to go computer to computer, and I don't know what that means. I don't know how you would connect VGA that way. It's just not built that way.
All right, well, that's our best shot for today. Gene, reform the question if you're not clear with the advice at this point, and we'll give it another shot another day. Thank you for the question, though. Speaking of questions, bringing these questions in is part of what we do every single day, and that's how the show is run. So if you ask about questions and you want to vote on the questions, you should go into our Mukana system. Go to officehours.global/join. We'll send you an email within a day or two. And once you've done that, you can ask, vote on, and discuss the show's questions. And I kind of highlighted vote on because that's one of the most important things, because the questions that are submitted to the show that get the most votes, we get to quicker and we spend more time on them. So that's kind of how you help the programming of the show every single day. So that's officehours.global/join. Next question.
Zach Stallsmith in Chautauqua, New York writes in, I have an MSI laptop that is hitting high CPU, but programs aren't taking up that much space. vMix is 20% when live. I've checked CPU heat, ran malware scan, updated GPU drivers. I'm still having this issue. Thoughts?
Ronnie Hofsway can help you out a little bit here. Ronnie?
Yeah, we had a similar question the other week. And first and foremost, you have to check the task monitor and just check which applications and services is running and how much resources they're using. And I was thinking afterwards last week, if you run it into safe mode, you can easily verify if it runs more smoothly. And in case it runs more smoothly in safe mode, that's an indication that there is a software that are taking all the resources. And just be aware, some of the resources could be hidden. And I would also dive into the services menu and see what services is starting up when you start up your machine. It could be that there are a rogue service that is actually not working, so that it creates some allergy into the resources that you have available. But there are so many things you could have happening on this machine, so it's kind of difficult unless you at least send us a big printout of the service or all the services that's running on your machine.
I like the idiom. Computers have viruses. Do they have allergies? Yeah, Courtney Gooden.
Yeah, I agree with Ronnie. It's check your processes that are running on the task manager and sort them in order of percentage used, and see what's gobbling up all of your CPU cycles. The other thing, I have an MSI laptop right over there, and another thing to think of is if it has a NVIDIA GPU in it, a separate GPU, in addition to its i9 or i7, whichever you have inside that laptop, check to make sure, check the MSI app that comes with it to make sure that you're utilizing. I had a problem with mine because it can switch back and forth depending upon what program is running between the iGPU, which is the internal one that's on the Intel chip, and the external NVIDIA GPU, which is a separate chip that's in there, and it'll jump back and forth depending upon the task that's needed and how much graphics work is required. And with vMix running on there, it should be trying to use the NVIDIA GPU. I switched mine to use the NVIDIA GPU only, and never use the internal GPU in the Intel chip that's on the same chip as the CPU. So that may be what's causing maybe it's causing the Intel chip to overheat because it's trying to do too much graphics power on that same chip as your CPU. So switch it to use the NVIDIA GPU only, and then make sure that vMix is set to use the NVIDIA graphics chip or graphics drivers.
Alex Lindsay.
I would carefully take all my documents off of the hard drive, and then I would pull the hard drive out. I wouldn't get rid of it, but I would just pull the hard drive out, put another hard drive in, install from scratch, try to run vMix, see if it works. Like just make sure you have all the updates, make sure that you've done all the things, and see if vMix works there. Then I would start adding things onto it. Like you can definitely look at the processes, but what I would do if you're going to use a live video process, I would highly recommend that PC is used as an appliance. So the reason that oftentimes vMix and others are not as stable as a piece of hardware like an ATEM is because there's a lot of other processes running on that computer. And if you treat that computer like an appliance, like this is my streaming app and it only has the tools that need to be there for me to do the streaming, you find it gets pretty stable. So that's something that I would consider is taking the hard drive out, putting another hard drive in, install clean, and build it up from there. But first, just put the stuff you absolutely need for streaming and see if it all works. And then the other option is that that's the drive you use when you do it. So that's you reboot into that system to make that happen. So, but I think that if I was having this problem on a Mac or a PC, I would grind the computer to the ground and put everything back on one at a time and see what's causing the trouble.
Next question.
Ryan Yewell in Kilgali, Rwanda writes in, if somebody has an idea for an app or program, what's the best approach to begin communicating it? Business plan, pitch deck, put a walkthrough on Keynote or PowerPoint, showcase market need with surveys, some kind of simple prototype of concept?
Big question, Alec. Courtney Gooden is going to start us off. Courtney?
Yeah, all the things that you mentioned are good things. What we used to do when we had a software idea is mock it up. Using Macromedia Director, which is long dead, but these days you'd use After Effects or some other animation program to build the user interface to appear to be interactive, to do whatever you're claiming that software or app is going to do, and mock it up and show a demonstration of how it would look and how it would feel and what it would do with actually outwriting the underlying software to actually do it. But I tell you, these days with AI and code generation being so easy with these AI chatbots that are out there that can generate code, I would just start there and actually generate a working version of your app and get it working, and then use that to demonstrate, because that'll do a couple of things. It will, one, prove that the idea is going to work, because you actually have to implement it in software. You can come up with an idea and mock it up, but you go to write the software and you may find that most computers can't run it, or it's not fast enough to be practical, or there are a number of roadblocks in the way when you go to try and turn an idea into an actual product. So work it along, build a working prototype if you can, code it, build a working prototype, protect it with copyright and any patents involved before you take it public, because people will copy you. If it is a good idea and it is worth a lot of money in the market, you will have other people that will try and use your idea and come up with their own version. So try and protect it as best you can before you start to present it as an idea, unless you're signing NDAs with all the people that you provide it to make sure that they agree not to steal your idea.
Alex Lindsay.
Yeah, oftentimes you have to know what. Yeah, to Courtney's point, you have to know what makes you special, and if it's not special, if it's just an idea, a lot of times it's very hard to protect these days. so you're gonna have to just kind of know that you're gonna have to move quickly once you get down that, once it becomes reaches the surface. I think a business plan makes sense. A lot of people are going to want to know, like, how big is the market, and what is the market, and how are you going to attack that market? How are you going to promote into that market? How are you going to make money with that? So those are the kind of things that they're going to want to answer. And typically a slide deck is going to be what you want. There's oftentimes two different versions of the slide deck. There's the one you present and the one you send out. A lot of people don't want you to write a business plan. So they don't want you to write like text, like pages and pages of text on a business plan. They're never going to read that. What they want is a deck. They might want a business plan someday after they do it, but what they generally want when they are giving you money is a slide deck. And that slide deck is, it can be just read. It's still just a presentation of those things, but it's simplified and easier for them to kind of grok. Most investors these days either get it or they don't get it. It's not like they're digging through the numbers to try to figure out what's happening. They know that it's all made up. But what does help is, a lot of times you're going to find an investor that gets it or doesn't get it. Like, you're going to say, I think we should do this. And then and the investor goes, I understand that that's a problem. Sometimes you can illustrate that, but a lot of what you're doing once you start looking at investors is sorting the investors. You're not trying to persuade anybody. You're just trying to show them your idea cleanly and have the ones that get it put money into it. And then and they're trying to sort you. You're trying to sort them, but you don't want to try to spend too much time trying to persuade someone who doesn't get it. As Courtney said, using AI, I build little apps now all the time in either chat. I kind of go back and forth between ChatGPT and Claude to build them, but I build ones. I haven't built anything that I would release, but I build them all the time. Well, I got this idea, and what's interesting is I can sit down for an hour and come up with an app that is usable. It's not releasable, but usable. And what I do is I tell it the one thing I want it to do, and then I start adding features to it and adding little bits and pieces. I don't try to tell it everything I want it to do because it just gets confused. So I would recommend trying to build something. And then the app right now that a lot of people use for these demos is called Figma. Figma is it'll build all the connections and do little animations and show you what the things are. And it's really, you may want to look at that one, that's what most things are prototyped in now.
Let's go to our next question.
Another QR code. Tony in Medford, Oregon asks, recommendations for getting gear from Oregon to Missouri, 3 large Pelican cases and 2 tripods.
Alex, what are you doing these days?
It depends on, I know you never think that we would say it depends, but it depends. It depends. So it depends on whether you're going with it, whether you need to be there with it, or you're just trying to get it there. If you're going with it, one thing to remember is that the black art of press passes or our media passes are important. They look a lot like this one. So this is an example of one that it says media on it, really dark, and it has a picture of you and it has a number that you make up. so it has your and then it has an address that looks kind of official. If you do a search, you'll see where people online will tell you to do it. This one's really bulky because I did it at the last minute. And I went literally to CVS and just printed it, printed color. I got the sizes right with the little lines and everything else. And I just printed it out, and I got these to make it look a little bit more official and everything else. But if it looks reasonably official, no one's going to ask any questions as long as you use one of two airlines in the United States, and that is United and Southwest. United is the easiest one, which is why a lot of us will use United a lot. Southwest, the other ones, it's not that nobody else has a media pass system; they're just very prickly. And so Southwest and United are just kind of like, yeah, whatever. They just let you through. And because of that, a lot of us use them pretty exclusively. So it's a good business model for them. It should cost you, with United, I can tell you, Southwest I don't use as much, but United is $50 a bag for domestic, up to 100 pounds. So you can have up to 100 pounds. It's going to be $50 a bag. You still have to weigh them on the way in and try to keep them under 70. It's mostly because they don't get thrown as hard. If you go over 70, two people are going to grab onto it and they kind of take it out on your bag. So you just know that if you have to go over 70, you can. But that's there. And then the other thing is remember that if you have any kind of if you already have like if you're a 1K or gold, platinum, those kinds of things. If you stay under 70 pounds, those bags are still free, that come with you, and then they add them up. We moved, I think our record was that we moved 2 tons of gear to Japan overnight for $1,300. so like it was 43 bags, I think. And there was a bunch of us because a lot of us had status. So we got all the under 70 pound ones for free. And then we paid for the other ones and they were all $70 a bag for international. So it can be, so it's a really, really good, if you're not going to do that, I mean, there's a lot of different services that will come and pick up your bags and take them to you. The one that we use probably the most is Rocket. And Rocket is, it's rock-it, rock like a rock, -it. And they mostly serve the entertainment industry. They're not the cheapest, but they will get to we had them deliver 4 pallets of gear to Davos. And they delivered it within 2 minutes of when they said they were going to be there, with 3 feet of snow that had dropped over the last 2 days. Like, Rocket is no one to be messed with if you absolutely need to get it, absolutely positively need to get it to. Finally, you can't get this anymore, but if you know anyone that does the gate-to-gate, that has the passes to do gate-to-gate checks, you can, like Southwest will do that. I don't think you can get those anymore. Like, I think so the company's like 090 has a gate-to-gate with Southwest, so we can do that. But Mark got that a long time ago before they tightened the security.
Courtney Gooden.
Yeah, they got rid of that with the security with, I think, the shoe bomber, I think, limited gate-to-gate or some other security issue.
If you're grandfathered in, you still get it, but you can't. Yeah. They don't give any new people access.
We used to do that all the time. I did find a website. Well, I think to go from Oregon to Missouri, Wagon Train might be your best bet there. We're taking them to Missouri. In reality, I found this site that goes over airline media baggage rate policies, and it has most of the airlines in it. And it looks like American Airlines has a good media rate on there that they do.
I know it says it looks like that. I highly recommend against American. Okay. Like, it is probably the most horrible experience as a media pass that I've ever had.
Well, this outline, this
in the United States
I'm showing shows you all the airlines, and it tells you which ones don't have any media rates and who to contact to find out if they do support it and what kind of deal you're going to get. Look for TAD shows, and you can take a look there. And if you want to use American Airlines, tell them Alex sent you.
Ronnie Hofsoy.
Yeah, and whatever you do, please remember to add your small little AirTag inside anything that you send, and then that you don't have your hands on. If you bring it, of course, inside the cabin with you, that's not a problem. But AirTag everything, and you will have a nicer day. That's for sure.
Alex Lindsay.
I just want to underline what Ronnie just said. AirTag everything. Like, I have gotten to the point now. I don't leave the house with any case, backpack, carry-on, anything without an AirTag in it. Like, and if you're wondering what the limit is, 32. 32 is the most I can do. So I have to start trading around if I get to 32, which I have. But there is nothing better than being able to just know, like, and it's not just like I have a bag that I didn't do that with. I'm still trying to figure out what happened to it. It has a bunch of gear in it. I'm a little, bummed, and I was like, I'm never going to do that again. And so now I have a little pile of air tags that are registered that I can just throw into. I have like 4 of them just sitting here. And I can just throw them into a bag, but I'm not going to leave the house without one at this point. Like, they are so useful. That I would highly recommend buying as many as you need for as many things that you have that you're going to take out of the house. I have them everywhere. So they're great.
For some reason, I'm still stuck on the red and white striped heavy tags that so many of my heavier bags had. I used to have a collection of them, and I know exactly what you're saying. You know that it's going to make it difficult to get that through the.
The other little things when you're doing it, as a couple of other tips since we're on this subject, is that. Number one is we weigh all the bags, and we put a piece of tape on the outside of it that says, what the weight is. The reason we do that is that if you take 10 bags or 20 bags in, they'll weigh the first 2 or 3. They'll see that you're accurate, and then they'll just not bother with the rest of them because they're going to have to take them somewhere else anyway. They're not going to oftentimes not going to put them on the conveyor belt there. So that's one thing that speeds things up a little bit. The other thing is that I always use, kind of neon orange or neon yellow bag tags, or not bag tags, zip ties on the Pelican cases. And the reason I do that is, number one is you want to zip tie them. You want to make it. The locks don't make any difference. So the TSA locks don't make any difference because someone took photos of all of them. They're one-dimensional. Someone took photos of them for a Washington Post article many years ago, and so. They have all the keys, so zip ties are just as secure. You just want to make it so someone can't just open it and put their hand in. It doesn't matter. But I always use bright colors because TSA only has clear ones. So when you see their bag come off the conveyor belt and it's got clear ones, you can just go look at that one immediately while you're still at the airport and see if they broke anything. That's usually what TSA doesn't steal. I haven't had anything stolen. With the new security, there's so many cameras. I think that would be a pretty hard thing to get away with. But they definitely break our monitors, and other things like that. And, teleprompt glass. That's another one that gets broken a lot. So we immediately look at them there. So those are a couple things that I would highly recommend. And then the other thing is that on the inside of your packing, we hide more of those zip ties, so you have them on the way back. One note is always zip tie them before you get to the airport. Don't zip tie them at the airport because TSA will tell you not to zip tie them because they don't want to cut them and use their own zip ties. So make sure you show up with everything ready to go, and then put a code on the outside so you know which ones are which. 1 of 9, and then have a database that says what's in each one of them. So if you lose one, you know what you lost.
Next question.
Danny Grizzle in Longview, Texas asks, what's the best way to locate a highly specialized tech consultant? I need help with an advanced Mac-based Retrospect backup system that involves dual HP Enterprise LTO tape autoloaders, barcoded tapes with ATTO SAS-Thunderbolt interface.
Ooh, that's a pretty specific one. Alex Lindsay, you got some help for him?
Mickey said to reach out to DCs in your area. Local DC takes care of our LTO drives. I'm not sure how much luck you'll have since you mentioned our Mac-based. Sorry to hear that. I'll be honest with you. I would carefully back up all those LTO drives to something else and get rid of them. I hate LTO drives. I know that Mickey likes them. I hate them. I have never had what you're dealing with here. Welcome to the world that I've had with LTO drives. So I know you probably have gigabytes and terabytes or whatever. The storage has gotten a lot cheaper since it used to be there. And it's just such a horrible experience. Those drives are just, you're going to eventually get rid of them. That's my prediction. But if you want to keep limping along with them, I would go to Dallas. It's probably the closest place. I know Shreveport's on one side, but Dallas is going to have more experts. And Chris Sabato said he set up a retrospect system 20 years ago. I would trust Chris. He's a smart guy. So maybe ping him and see if he can't troubleshoot with you. He knows things. He knows a lot of things. And so maybe talk to him. But I think that my bet is, now that the things are kind of coming apart here, that if we ping you next January, you won't have any LTO drives.
Jason Beige.
As a highly specialized Mac tech, I can just say get rid of them.
There you go. Seems to be a a confluence of opinion here. Hey, by the way, I mentioned earlier that you can put your questions in through the Makana system. You can also, if you want to get them in quick, just type into your browser askofficehours.global. Type that in directly, and it's going to take you to the same place that this QR code that I'm about to toss up on the screen takes you to. Basically, this kind of gets you immediately into the queue. You don't have to go through the sign-up process should you not wish to. You don't get the benefits of some of the being able to vote on things, but you can get a question in real quick, and we encourage you to do that. It takes you directly into that system backend to look at it real quick and make sure that your questions, when you first start putting them in, are concise and well-formed, because we're going to have to read them aloud on the air. All right, next question.
Coming in for the QR code, Tyler Robertson Chambersburg writes in, we have been using meta portals for Zoom at our church meeting rooms and classes. As of February 1st, it looks like the portals were updated and the Zoom app was removed. Can you still use Zoom on the portals, or are there similar Zoom hardware?
Ooh, Alex Lindsay, what do you think?
I was surprised the portal still worked. I thought that they had slowly. I think that they're slowly depreciating the portals. This is just part of that step. So I don't know. I don't know. I actually don't know. They may have Zoom may not be updating it because the portals are being end of lifed, I believe. So I don't think that there's. I think you're in a sinking ship there. You might want to think about what else you want to use.
Courtney Gooden.
I mean, if you have someone that's talented with Android, I think the portal runs a version of Android on there as its operating system. You might be able to download the Zoom for Android app and use Downloader, which is a program that you can put on most Android platforms to sideload APK files, which is how that app is going to come in on Android, and reinstall it. Don't know if it's still going to support the hardware, since it's kind of a customized version of Android for the portal. So it may just be a last effort to try, but you may get it to work. And they may have just removed it for some other reason, simply because they no longer actively support the Zoom app on that particular platform. But it may still run. They just don't want to deal with problems.
There you go. Next question.
Paul Walhus in Austin, Texas writes in, Apple chose this as App of the Year in all categories and includes a link.
Ooh, good for News Shooter. Alex Lindsay.
Yeah, Keynote. We've talked about Keynote in the past. They've kind of gone halfway between the Blackmagic complexity of the Blackmagic camera and the simplicity of the Apple camera. And Keynote kind of has gone into the middle of it. It's kind of more of an artist's version of the it's a little bit cleaner interface than the Blackmagic one, less things to flip, but also a little less control. And so I think that it's an interesting app. I have it. I love it. I think it's great. I don't use it as much as the Blackmagic app because I want all the controls that I have with Blackmagic, and I want them exposed the way that the Blackmagic app is something I'm more comfortable with. But I don't recommend that to everyone. There's a lot of fiddly bits to it, and it's really easy to get it into a state that is not going to get you something that you want. So you do have to figure out what makes the sense. And I still use the Apple. I'm using the Apple camera app mostly because I'm shooting spatial, and I don't know whether Keynote does spatial, but I should check to look at that. But because I'm shooting spatial stuff, I still use the actual Apple phone, which drives me a little crazy because there's literally no information. You kind of plug it in and hope that everything's working. Like I'm doing ambisonic or binaural, ambisonic driven to binaural into the phone, and then I'm capturing spatial. And the only way to really do that right now is using either Stream Voodoo's app or using the Apple. And I don't have any in either one of them. I don't have any meters. I don't know what's going on. so I'm trying to figure that out. So the Keynote app might be something in between. If both of them, I'm hoping will support spatial at some point.
Ronnie Hopsoy.
Yeah, first and foremost, it's so cool what you're trying and testing with the Ambio. I really have to talk to you.
It's awesome. Like it's one of the coolest things I've played with for a little while. Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, so we have to talk. Back to the question. I tend to think that the Keynote Pro is for people where I recommend friends and family that are not satisfied entirely with the control they have on their iPhone camera app. They need a little bit more professional settings, but still I regard them as not professionals. And the Blackmagic, as Alex said, is for us, others that are actually doing this either as professionals or are very much more interested and want to dig deep in the settings. And on that part, the Blackmagic camera app is really killing it.
Next question.
Andy Kokendorfer in Viera, Florida writes in, can you recommend a portable video conferencing device similar to a meeting owl that can be shipped to rooms and is easy to set up? Thanks.
Alex Lindsay.
So the Meeting Owl is it's a camera that has 360 mics as well as a 360 camera. If I'll show it here. This is so it can kind of grab different. I don't know of another thing like the Meeting Owl other than the Meeting Owl. And it's interesting. I'd be curious, Andy, if you can tell us how much that's being used for your organization. What we're seeing, not just in our organization, but every organization we run into, is less and less people are using conference rooms. And more people are just coming in from their office, from their home, from the whatever. And when you talk to people about it, a lot of it is related to them picking each other up in the mics and not being able to hear clearly in the sound. Like, people have become a lot more conscious to people have become a lot more conscious to how bad the conference rooms sound in a video conference, and as a result, they're just not using them as much. And it's something that I haven't been in a room. I haven't been in a meeting with people in conference rooms for at least 6 months. Like maybe a year. Like, it's become more and more rare to see that, because the audio and video is so bad, and people, even people who don't have good setups, the audio and video is better than conference rooms. Ronnie here is showing the Insta360 Link, the Link 1, which is better than Link 2. I guess they really are going to let that one go. So if you don't have it now, you might want to buy one. It's much better than the Link 2. But I don't think it will automatically find the person who's talking. The big thing with the Owl is that it's easier to grab. It identifies folks and so on and so forth. John Wallace says it's hard to get a conference room in his office. They're booked all day long. Maybe that's why the video conference folks just do video conferencing and don't use it, because the conference rooms are really popular. But I'm sure it just has to do with the companies that I work with. A lot of them are international. They have people all over the world, and they just have stopped. I just don't see them anymore. I was just thinking about it, the question. I was like, when was the last time I saw someone come in from a conference room? And I can't remember.
Yeah, Andy noted the Meeting Owls for co-working spaces, rentals where they cannot install something.
Which is, I'll be honest, is worse in some cases. I mean, like the big problem with co-working spaces and having meetings with speakers especially is, like, what are you talking about? Can you talk about that in front of a bunch of people you don't know? You shouldn't think that co-working spaces are secure in any way, shape, or form.
Courtney Gooden wanted to weigh in on this. Courtney?
Yeah, I was searching around to see if I could find. I have not used it. I do not vouch for this, but there is a competitive system called the Toucan. It's another bird. Get it at B&H. It's similar to the Owl. It's a 360-degree conferencing system. It's a little thing. It sits in the middle of the table. It has microphones that go around it in a similar fashion. It's only $400, and it has 5-star review. Of course, there's only one review on B&H, so be afraid, be very afraid. You could make sure if you purchase one to try it out, make sure you have a good return policy. That's all. So.
I'm waiting for the Pelican if we're going to animalize these. Next question.
Brian Taylor in Washington, D.C. asks, which mini hockey puck PC would you recommend solely for running OBS or vMix?
No one has raised a hand on this yet, and I'm not familiar with this particular thing. I know Courtney does with some of those small computers and things like that. A lot of people are using Mac Minis. Alex, what's your thought?
I'm going to let Courtney talk about the PC side of that. If you're doing OBS, I'm running OBS on a Mac Mini M4, the least expensive version they make, and it is at running at 120 frames a second. The OBS is using a whole 6% of the M4 Mac Mini's capacity. So, like, the CPU capacity, it's like barely awake. So it's working pretty well. Obviously, it won't run vMix, but Courtney might be able to help you with a PC side of that.
Courtney, dive in.
Well, B-Link, makes a large number of the 5-inch square units, and you can get them with a variety of CPUs and GPUs up to i9s and NVIDIA chip and AMD chipsets. And these little GMK techs, which I use a lot, are tiny. And they'll run, these come with 12, this one comes with 12K, and it just uses the Intel GPU. I haven't tried running OBS or vMix on it yet. It should be capable of it because it'll run DaVinci Resolve 19, so it should be able to run vMix. It depends on how heavily vMix is pulling on the GPU. And these do have, these newer GMK tech have Celeron chipsets in them. They're quad core, and they do have the newer GPUs in them that have 24 execution units in it. So, I run these, and I've used it to play back 18 HD streams simultaneously, if not 20. And it didn't seem to throttle the GPU down or the CPU down at all. It has built-in hardware encode and decode of H.264 and H.265. So if it's utilizing the hardware properly, I could try it out and let you know. But they're cheap enough. They're $149. So, hey, good to give it a shot.
If you value what you've learned here on Office Hours over the course of time, you can help us. There are ways you can help. You can like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can volunteer at officehours.global/volunteer and become part of the team that makes all this possible. Or if you'd like, you can donate at officehours.global/donate. Those are all ways you can support us, and we would appreciate it because we love being here every day, trying to do our best to help you out through your tech challenges. Next question.
F.A. Simmons in St. Louis writes in, is there an example you can share about your process of building an app quickly from AI, even if it's simple and not really marketable? I'm really curious about the specific steps like language and platform used, etc.
Right to Alex. Alex.
As an example, I was experimenting with some ideas around some drawing stuff. I mean, Juan is writing something that I could never do in ChatGPT or anything else, but I was experimenting with some drawing stuff that I wanted to put together. And as a result, I went into ChatGPT, and and again, this is just me messing around and thinking. But what I did was I said, I want you to write this in Swift. Like so I just went straight for the straight to Xcode, for it. So I'm writing this in Xcode. I want you to write this in the language of Swift. And then I say, I just want something that'll take this drawing, whatever. And it created, that. Then I said, and now I want you to connect all the keys to the resistor codes. And it did that. And then I did, I kept on just adding things. I want to be able to push the up and down button and make it do this. And it did that. It did that. Now, it is nowhere near what I'm doing here. And so it's not the right solution in that sense, but it was just like, oh, I'll see what I can do with that. I have another one that I'm playing with right now that does time, does countdown clocks. So that because it has a bunch of tools that I can't find anywhere else. And so I'm building something that will let me do that thing. And then I have another one that I'm playing with that does what this, does something like what this Sync 1.2 does, but with a phone. And it hasn't worked yet, but I'm playing with it, and it gives me a little interface, and I put things up. But the key is that I ask for things simple, like I want you to do this one thing, and then I start asking for one more thing on top of that. It'll rewrite all the code. It'll refactor everything every time you ask it, but its understanding of what you're doing is building. And then I'm not a big Xcode person. It just tells me what to do. Like, open this up, put it in here, open this up, put it in here, hit this button, hit execute, and it'll come out the other end. And it does. And so my understanding is that the one that is the most stable, the code base that's the most stable in most of these is Python. And that's because Python is so well documented across the internet. There's the most users, the most documentation. So if you have something that can do Python or Java, or JavaScript, those are the ones that are the most documented, and as a result, it's the most accurate and the most powerful in that area. But almost any language we've thrown at it, I know that CJ built some stuff, for Resolve and some other plugins and everything else, and it's a couple hours that you'll sit down and do something that would have taken, well, for me, it would have taken forever. because I couldn't code it. So again, I'm not producing things that I feel like I could release. I know some people might be able to release it, but I wouldn't be able to. But I'm doing things that let me think about things and then talk to people who I'm working with of like, here's what I'm thinking. And then they can go write it. So I haven't found it to be a productivity thing other than prototyping.
Next question.
Zach Stallsmith in Chautauqua, New York, writes in, this is just more of a fun project idea, not any sense of urgency in production, but would it be possible to control a digital audio or lighting console from an Apple Watch?
Alex Lindsay, do you think there's enough space there?
Absolutely. You could absolutely do something. I mean, I don't know, you could mute a channel and you could probably go up there where you're like pushing it up and down and everything else. It would be totally absurd. There'd be no reason to do it. But Electric Image, they used to build the 3D app that I used. They figured out how to render to. Oh, I'm sorry, not Electric Image. Cinema 4D. Maxon figured out how to have the render engine run on a Palm Pilot when Palm Pilots were a thing. So you can do lots of crazy things. It's not particularly useful, but it's fun.
There you go. Ronnie Hofso has a thought.
Yeah, definitely. And it depends, of course, as usual, on the hardware you have, both the soundboard and the light controller. But I've been looking at something called PHI OSE, so PHI OSE, which is a physical OSC interface, so it reacts on your movements as well. So then you can start controlling moving heads, etc. The other way to do it is probably more media related. There is a plethora of apps for both iOS, Android, and Apple Watch that can send MIDI messages. I've seen an artist actually do that live on stage. I wouldn't recommend that specifically, but it's possible. And you just have to dig in, start testing the apps and see if you can interface it. There are also translators between OSC and MIDI. If your soundboard is only MIDI, you can translate these using a small server software. So there are a lot of opportunities. So just dig in and report back what you achieved.
Courtney Gooden.
Sorry, I had to get my hand back on the mouse. Well, my watch, which is not an Apple Watch, but it is a digital watch, and it has the A-Lady from Alexa built into it. So you could do voice commands, anything that works with the Amazon Echo system. You can set up, I have my LED lights and stuff all set up to work off of that person. I can change the color of the lights. I can change the brightness of the lights. I can turn them on and off. I don't know about sound. I can control the sound on my TVs, volume up, volume down, things like that. But, discrete control over individual channels, that's asking a lot to be able to control off of a watch. Not saying it can't be done, but, you might have to do a little programming to do it.
Got a lot of fun suggestions in the chat, too. Somebody said, John Wallace said, more me option for in-ear monitors on the Apple Watch would be a good feature. Yes, I would probably be tapping that a lot. You can run Doom on a Lava console, but why? Apple Watch is a clicker, came from Craig McFarlane, and Craig Kadoki said, using it to recall a scene might be the only thing I can think of as a recall all mute in case something goes horribly wrong. So you've sparked a lot of people who go, there's a lot of things you really need to get to in a panic that might be really useful for that. Let's go to our next question.
Joaquin Matus in Imperial Valley, California writes in, thoughts on last night's Grammys from a production perspective.
Alex Lindsay, what do you think?
Overall, I thought they did pretty well. I skipped through it. I don't really watch award shows, but I skipped through the some of the bits and pieces of it. Here you can kind of see the configuration that they had. So they had kind of a entry point here, and then they had these performance areas that they could jump to one to the either side. And they did a lot. I mean, they changed this background. They were pretty aggressive. Some of the, I was trying to find it. The Billie Eilish one was pretty good. And what they were doing pretty well was matching foreground elements really well with the background elements. So, the integration of what they put on set with the LED wall really gave it a lot of dimension, and the LED wall was not doing all the lifting, which is what most people make the mistake of. There were still a lot of set pieces and physical set pieces, but the ability to create this context and everything above here, this is all LED. Occasionally, they're still using 2/3 inch chips, so occasionally you saw a little bit of moire and a little bit of you still saw seams, that were still there. I was kind of surprised by that, that you would still see LED wall seams. That was the one, like the Billie Eilish one. The very first time I saw it, I was like, "Did they really do that outside?" and then I was like, "That's crazy." Oh, here it is. Hold on. Here's the. So this is once they went wide, you could see it. They started putting images in there. So here you can see this. At the very beginning, and that's here you can see like. Oh, you can't see it, can you? Yeah. Here you can see the seam. that they're doing there, and so that was the part that it was a little bit of a fly in the ointment there, but you can see what they did here is that this is really working. This is all foreground elements, and then this is the background element, and adding these pieces into it and giving them somewhere to stand. I think that worked well, and it really gave a different. Now, as soon as they get these close-ups, this fall off, which I thought that they were doing in an interesting way, but this fell too quickly from one to the other. And it's a little, the contrast, obviously, you start to end up with some issues there. So it didn't work as well. It felt more like a stage, but it was a pretty impressive way of handling it. Again, I know that somebody back there was like, I can't believe we couldn't fix that, because that would have driven me absolutely crazy. But anyway, so those are the things that it's almost there. Like I would say that it's not quite there as an element that's seamless, but I think we're 2 or 3 years away from these elements. The LED walls really, and we used to recommend against LED walls all the time, but it's actually getting to be pretty good.
Courtney Gooden?
Yeah, I watched most of the show, and I think the logistics were really well handled. I didn't see any major glitches or audio or video problems. They had, basically 4 stage areas. There was an area, a performance area in the round out in the middle of the award nominees area, which was set up like a cafe with seats around it. And so there was that area which could take the heat off the stages so that they could reset the stages there were a couple of big production numbers that used both stages and the centerpiece. And you got to think of all the expense of setting that up, because they had, 2 or 3 giant LED walls for each side of that stage, because there's one that comes down in front like a curtain that covers up, that allows them to reset the stage and props and foreground stuff behind that LED wall. And those 2 LED walls came down when the presenters came out to present the awards. And then when they'd go into another performance piece, those 2 curtain-like LED walls would rise back up and reveal the stage, which had a second LED wall behind it, and the props and set pieces in front of that LED wall. And then there was the tunnel LED wall, which is in the middle where the presenters came out of that little hole in the middle. And that had an LED wall behind the hole, and it had 2 LED walls on either side of that corridor that leads up to the microphone. So, there must have been 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 LED walls, at least on that stage, including the ones that had to fly in and out. And there had to be, I could see it several times, the stage managers would come out when they were getting ready to go from a performance into an award presentation, so to make sure that the performers that were on stage were not standing underneath where those giant LED walls were sliding down in front of them, just to keep everybody safe. You could see the stagehands. And there were a ton of first ADs and floor managers to usher talent on and off the stage. And they did a pretty good job. And many of the orchestral pieces where they had a full orchestra on stage, every instrument was individually mic'd with small condenser microphones clipped on the bells of horns and onto the string instruments. So a major mixing issue to deal with all that live music. And some people worked with tracks, but most worked with live music, and it all had to be synchronized because all the LED backgrounds were tightly synced to the music that was playing.
The thing that struck me more than anything else watching the show was they broke the proscenium pretty heavily from square one. I mean, Trevor Noah, the host, started off backstage, and they did a lot of things about the fires in Los Angeles and raising funds, and that's perfectly appropriate. I'm sure they wanted to avoid criticism of doing a big party after there was so much disaster in the heart of the music industry in Los Angeles. But once he got past that first proscenium, most of the rest of the inserts through the whole show, he was just at one of the rounds or walking between the rounds talking to the people. So he really hosted the show from within the audience, which is something I have not seen at that extent. We've seen short stretches, but this entire show was basically hosted from the show floor, from the audience floor. And I thought that was pretty effective. You got to watch most of the stars behind him most of the day, and they had to be on their best behavior because the live shots were all there. And even many of the acts started out with handing a mic to someone in the audience and then following them onto stage for the actual rest of the performance. And I thought all of that really did break down and make it more of a we're in the room with them kind of feeling as opposed to the standard proscenium thing. That was my thought after watching it. Thank you all for watching today. We appreciate it every day when you come here. Don't forget, we are here every single day, and we wouldn't be here without a ton of people working to make this possible. Our producers, everybody who asked questions today, you are the people who drive this show with your questions and your votes on those questions, so thank you for that. For all the panelists who show up every day to add their expertise into the mix and try to help you solve problems. Thank you. And our amazing back-end crew who does an incredible job coming in digitally and virtually from all around the world, mixing audio and throwing up graphics and all the meetings behind the scenes that you never see when you watch the show to coordinate everything. It is an incredible effort, and we appreciate each and every one of you on the back-end crew doing that. For the few of us who have our faces out here, for each one of us, there's probably a dozen people in the back doing things. Thank you for that. Today, our telect reversal, 24,000 miles. That is 39,000 kilometers or 193 million bananas for scale. We'll see you tomorrow. Alex, nice hat.
The test hat. The logo's, I think, a little high and a little too small, but we're getting closer.
Always make the logo bigger.
Yeah, exactly. So we're close. Everyone's watching the credits. They're like, what are they talking about?
Yeah, it's a secret. We'll show you. Alex will show you in a special reveal coming up.
Exactly.
When deemed appropriate.
Maybe this weekend, this Sunday, we'll show it.
Sunday.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll just keep talking about it in the credits.
Yeah, there we go. Just let's keep it completely veiled.
See you later.
In a world with sunlight.
Everybody making a donation this week will get a special graphic, the reveal of the logo. See you all tomorrow, everybody. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.